welcome everyone to hopefully a very insightful, inspiring panel debate with here my fellow panelists. I think there was a lot of discussion today about forging new alliances, but not only throughout, let's say, European Union, but going into more detail and going into CEE. And today here we are talking about what lessons could perhaps Austria learn from the CEE, but also whether CEE is an interesting market. So I'm not here alone today, and with my panelists, that's a very interesting mix here because we have Gabriela, who is promoting Vienna as a business hub, so she's looking at the topic from a very interesting perspective. Then we have Thomas and Marco, who are hands-on working on projects in the CEE, so they can share their experiences with what it means to invest in the CEE. And then we have Marek and myself, who are legal advisors, so we are usually on the boring legal side of everything, but we are trying to help investors to set up their projects in the CEE. So my first question is, CEE has shown a remarkable growth over the last couple of years. And some may even argue that still, despite this growth, the potential remains untapped. Can you share perhaps what the CEE can offer to investors, but investors nowadays are perhaps still sleeping on these new opportunities? Who will kick off the discussion? Marek, let's go.
Well, if I can kick off, first of all, we need to understand what CEE is, and CEE is 11 countries in the Central and Eastern Europe. It's 100 million euros of GDP, of inhabitants. It's 1.3 trillion of euro of GDP. So it's a 10% of the European GDP, size comparable to the whole Nordics or Benelux countries. But on the other hand, it's a quarter of population of Europe. So from this, you see the potential. It is developing consistently on a higher rates than the rest of the Europe. It's like 3% of GDP growth compared to 1% of the whole Europe. But this growth is untapped to the extent that there is visible potential to it, comparing the number of people with the GDP. There is no ceiling. Of course, market conditions are dependent on the global economies. So when there is a downturn, and we have a bit of a hiccup now, there is a downturn also in CEE, but it's much more tamed to the extent that it is like propelled by this difference between the rate of growth, I think. I'm not sure if anyone wants to share also on the CEE itself, because then we can compare markets and compare the regulatory environments.
Yeah, let's perhaps at the beginning stick to the potential of the region. Like, what is the region actually offering to investors? Why is it interesting?
Maybe I can add, because I'm also around globally, and what I really see is that CEE is often underestimated because there is a huge talent pipeline. People are hungry, they want to improve their life. And I think that many countries really managed to do their regulations framework, especially also when it comes to VC money and PE, in a very good way. So it shows now that it is successful. And I think that sometimes people from the US, they don't have this picture in mind because CEE has still this historical connotation, but it changed rapidly. And this message must be told to the world, so to say, yeah. And that's why I'm very happy to have this panel with this title, because it shows that there's a lot going on.
So maybe to summarize, we as the group, we are many years operating in the region. Actually, the bank was founded more than 200 years ago, so it's quite a while. As an asset manager, we are investing in the region, and we found a very favorable combination of factors there. There is growth, there is entrepreneurial spirit, and there is tech and engineering talent. Growth is driven by the concept of, I would say, economic integration into Europe. So the European Union really works. You can see it as a sum of those countries who joined more lately and really benefiting from this macroeconomic tailwind, I would say. And this results in above average growth rates on a GDP level in these countries, as well as, and that's also a very favorable condition, very low debt levels on a government level, which means that there is more flexibility for tax and fiscal policies as well. This creates a situation where these economies can prosper and benefit from this kind of integration story, and it at the same time means that companies operating in this economic environment have or can enjoy some tailwind because of these factors. There is tech and engineering talent, and there the background is in education. Typically, people are more educated in the field of engineering and mathematics, and therefore are more leaned into the sectors of information and communication technology, which results that all entrepreneurial initiatives really are centered around these kind of growth driving and innovative sectors as well. And there is a generation with a certain hunger and entrepreneurial spirit who want to build up something.
So you would say that the success comes from a combination of the people, the economic growth, and perhaps, let's say, a success story of the EU project. Would you agree with that? That this is why the CEE is so successful now?
Yes. Yes. And on top of that, there are investment programs going into the region which really led to the success of really building ecosystems. The single ecosystems in the countries are now much more developed than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's still small compared to Western Europe, but there is a clear result observable already. What public money, like the initiatives of the EF, have done, and I must say they have done proper work in the different countries to really kickstart the initiatives, and it was a very good example. We heard it today in the morning. Even though you look at a country or a market and say there is nothing there, what can we support there? If you start to set up a program that is well structured and done in a market structure, initiative will come, and the different market players will join, will come to this market where capital is available. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, but that's a very good example where these kind of kickstarting ecosystems really worked and still work.
I would like to second this. We have been investing in the region for quite a while, 25 years, not 200 years, but 25 years is also something, I say. And when we started investing, there were only a handful of pioneering private equity funds in the region, mostly covering Poland, and then some of the sort of national champion assets, in smaller countries of the region. And with this EIF, this initiative that EIF started a few years ago has created really great results, which also brought then the sort of national development banks and national development institutions that sort of partnered with EIF, and we have seen in the past 4 or 5 years excellent teams that we co-invest with these days in Slovenia, in Croatia, in Bulgaria, which have really created, like Thomas said, an ecosystem of private equity which hasn't really existed before. So really, really great job.
Interesting. So
If I may add to that, because we are turning a bit around this, but it's not only the funding, but it's also the regulatory environment that matters. And I think the whole CEE, and when I listened this morning to the panelists describing what is going on in Austria, I think this is one of the lessons that Austria could take from CEE. apart from being funded from cohesion funds from Europe, CEE has done a great job in creating the environment that is self-sufficient to the extent that you have a national funds. Almost, I think every country in the CEE has its fund of funds that is investing European money into the projects. Something that I understand in Austria does not exist. We have added a cocktail, because the recipe for cocktail is quite clear. You have to have a regulatory framework and you have to have a financial framework. To add to those European funds, you also have the tax environment that is pretty specific in order to enhance the effect of the financing. You have tax breaks for certain structures that are usually used, at least in Poland. That's what I can say. You have tax structures that enhance the effect of investment, and you have tax breaks for certain sectors, for certain R&D, prices, etc., etc. So apart from the clear funding, you have a regulatory framework that is very in favor of supporting this part of the economy.
There were a couple of areas where also the region has been fortunate, if you will. One is that there was this huge entrepreneurial push after the changes in the 1990s. That was huge. And then there was one element which was sort of was a disadvantage, but which was sort of turned into advantage as well. Because there was a relatively lack of capital in those early days. So I think it pushed also the entrepreneurs to embrace leverage and embrace that. And I think that sort of a comfort level with higher leverage ratios, I think, has contributed also in the development of private equity market in the region.
You all share extensive experiences when it comes to overseeing projects across CEE. Could you share with all of us your insights and your experiences when it comes to, let's say, deciding on investing in the CEE, then the whole project management part of it? And can you just walk us through what are the biggest insights and experiences on your side when it comes to investing in CEE?
Well, I can give a couple of things also that where the region has come a long way. I started my career in sort of distressed investment and really have seen, the region has been developing very quickly since the 90s, and the first really signs of trouble were in the 2000s, and sort of we were talking with a banker and they said, well, do you have an early warning system? For the possible problem loans, and said, yes, I have an early warning system. And I said, what is it? Well, when the client doesn't pay us. So this is where they started, but they have really gone a long way into this. And as have also the region, because it tried to adopt, for example, legal systems, some from Europe that they thought were good, some even from the US or UK, that aspects, especially on the bankruptcy law, that were good. The legal system were there, but it took a while for them to develop a legal practice that would match the good legal systems that they had. So it has really come a long way, I would say, the region in many aspects.
But what really bothers me is it's great that he's doing that well. Western Europe being also, and also Austria, the VC system developed over the last decade. But still, if you see the numbers in total, so we have around 8 billion invested by VC funds in Europe, and we have 52 billion invested in the US. So the question that bothers me always from a business location point of view, not only Vienna, Austria, but for Europe, is really how we can mobilize more money, still more money, into this VC PE funds. Because I really think, I saw the number that at the moment, more than 60% of all the companies in Europe who needs money are depending on foreign financial markets, which means in the growth phase, a lot of companies are depending now not on the European financial market, but on the other foreign markets. And I think it's, in the long run, not good also for European market if for the growth phase we cannot provide the money within Europe. And I would be interested also to hear from this panel, who are experts in that field, what could different levels do? A city, a national level, or is it only to be done and solved on a European level? Because I think this will decide the developments over the next 20 years. So I would be very keen to also hear with the background and the experience in CEE now, what should and could be done in order to bring the whole European market here to a better stage.
What CEE shares with Austria and with the rest of Europe is that, in general, equity investors, private equity investors, venture capital investors are not that big and not there. When you look at the large asset pools, and we named them earlier today already, pension funds, insurance companies, their allocation of these asset pools to the asset class is still very low on a pan-European level, I would say. There may be exceptions in Western Europe, but that's a general problem, especially when it comes to pension funds. That's something where I would say whole of Europe could solve two problems with one solution. This is nothing specific for the CEE region and not for Austria. Still in the CEE region, I would say government agencies, and that's what the statistics tell us. Government agencies are still the largest investor into venture capital and private equity funds in the region. The investments from insurance companies and pension funds, the reasons are very diverse. It's regulatory, it's other things as well, are really minor. It's a few percentage points still compared to the total amount of being invested. The solution is, in my naive thinking, change the pension system across Europe. And have one solution and have the solution for two problems, the pension problem and the capital markets problem. I'm not sure if we can solve it here.
We can try.
The other thing is, it's in my opinion, it's better to do something, start something, and then see how if the market follows or not. We have started, as you know, a fund a few years ago, in order to invest into the whole region. So we're investing in Central and Eastern Europe and DACH. So we really try to get the benefit and capture the growth and the performance of the whole region. What we see now is, and that's something not everybody knows, the region, including Austria, I would say, is overlooked. Everybody who lives west to Prague does not really care as an investor about CEE, because the general perception is there is not much. Actually, there are across the region really a few hundreds of funds already really being active in the region. There are, I think, more than 4,000 now companies being private equity or venture capital backed. So it's a really a market in total. It's still tiny compared to the larger markets, but there is something going on. So starting an initiative and doing it and showing that it's working and there is money to be made is one answer to trying to solve the problem. And we managed to get banks, insurance companies, and pension funds with tickets on board of our fund of funds. So maybe that's the beginning, and I hope it's going to be more in the future. But I think that's the only way where we can, as actors in the market, actually do something. We cannot wait until policymakers will do something that makes things work.
Sounds like a perfect start to me. Any other, let's say, success stories that you can share that we can illustrate the potential of the CEE market?
Maybe I can add one. I mean, our firm has been on the market for a while, and we are investing out of our Fund 5. So we have a good balance between the IFIs and the private capital. But what we have seen that is that this new sort of generation of smaller regional private equity firms, their first funds were almost exclusively being financed by IFI money, by EIF and EBRD and IFC and then the state development agencies. Already now they're coming, many are starting the fundraising processes for Fund 2, and there is already quite a sizable private investment from the local pension funds, there is more appetite. These guys have, I think starting a private equity firm is one of the most challenging and most sort of it really requires a lot of endurance, because the first time funds take several years to raise usually and so on. But these people have shown good results, and in their second funds, they, from what we see, are getting rewarded with significant private capital as well.
Any other success stories? Marek, you were helping many investors in Poland. Can you name some projects that particularly were interesting to you?
Well, apart from the entities that were built from scratch, I think the flagship project for last year is Impost, which is a company that is taking the European market by storm, currently developing also in UK. Which is sort of tech-driven delivery company with those post-OMATs that are scattered around Poland. I think in their history there were like 4 changes of private equity partners backing them up, and it ended quite successfully. They are super successful from this perspective, and what is actually nice is that you have certain stages of life of the project, and this morning there was saying that there is no exit path for the project, but actually in terms of Poland, for example, it's responsible for 85% of exits in the whole CEE. So we, at least, even if the market, even in the downturn market, it's still giving the opportunity to go ahead, to fundraise and to exit. And as you were saying, there is a quite sizable now national, not international, but national base of funds, which has been created by those 30 years of hungry environment, hungry for success environment, which is of course dependent from the funding from the whole world, and particularly from the European Union funds. But it's self-sustainable. It proceeds with the success, and it's choosing the projects, and it's realizing them, and it's performing well. So that's maybe one of the stories. And this is multifold because, for example, in case of Impost, it actually that PE can create millionaires. That's the panache, that's the entourage of PE, and it actually does. So there are spin-offs of HNWIs that are investing further. They have their own funds, and again, the regulatory framework is that it is pretty easy to create a fund that is investing then, and it's pretty advantageous from the tax point of view to do that. So this is a chain of events that started some 30 years ago, but it's based, particularly to my understanding, on the environment in terms of people, in terms of how you frame the PE environment. I'm sorry to say that we are at the PE conference, but PE is consistently in the Western Europe considered to be a bad boy, like the restructuring processes, the layoffs, the bankruptcies. This is like the badge that you have from PE. In Poland, that is not so visible, because there is a big effort in emphasizing the job creation function of the PE. There is a huge there's a huge effort on emphasizing what the funds are dedicated for, and they are dedicated in part due to European Union requirements for the green transformation. So there is a consistent emphasis on PE being not only a financing box, but being a tool that gives you the capacity to manage companies professionally, a tool that gives you, of course, capital, but a tool that is directed at transformation. To say this bluntly, P in Poland, please, is sexy. It's a trend. It's a thing. Also, in the new generation, in the Gen Z generation, when you are talking all the time about the trends like bare minimum Mondays or quiet quittings or whatever, in Poland, P is perceived as sexy. It's something fun. It's something entrepreneurial. It gives you a boost, and this is, I think, the biggest difference that I see between the landscape of Poland and, for example, Austria. When Mr. Bleier said this morning that go and convince the politicians, go to the conferences, I don't think the conferences will change their minds. What may change their mind is social media, and social media is heavily dependent on how the industry itself is being perceived by the total the business community and by the political community, and those are interconnected.
May I add, and I think it's also very important to build a specific pipeline for this kind of companies. That's where we can do something as a Vienna business agency. We try to support new innovative founders and startups. We have incoming programs for international startups to come here and check out if the CEE region could be a good entry market for them in Europe, and maybe if Vienna or a neighboring city is a good starting point for them. So I think besides these very concrete activities, you need to have the whole environment that feeds into these developments. We are, for example, organizing Vienna Up. This is a huge startup festival, and there are many visitors also from CEE investors and corporates, and within that it's more than 80 events going on in 1 week. There is also a specific investors track, and we also always organize the Salon Future, we call it, in order to, we did have the problem that we didn't have ecosystem builders in Prague, in Warsaw, in Krakow, wherever, Sofia and so on, because the ecosystem wasn't there. So we really proactively went into the cities and countries, asked around, found the right people, and now we have this exchange platform. And I think especially taking maybe next time the topic of PE and VC and how different cities are dealing with that, because sharing this knowledge, the motivation and what worked out and didn't work out is, I think, a very important point in order to foster the development and to see what benefits you can win out of it.
So do you think it's time for Austria and Vienna in general to take lessons from the CEE, to learn from this?
It always has been, I know that there was this attitude maybe sometime that we thought we are the best, but it's not the case. We always could have learned something from others. And when I see what my colleagues in Sofia and other cities built with so low resources, but what they achieved with that, it's impressive. So there are always things we can learn from each other. And I always say, yes, there is competition, but we always can find also synergies, and where cooperation makes the cake bigger, and not to fight for one cake, but to make the cake bigger. I think this is the huge task we have in order to see, okay, where can we learn from each other, where are the synergies, and where can we work together and really to go one step further. And I see that in many small examples, what we are doing with the international startups coming and so on. Maybe if Vienna is not the right place, fine if they go to Prague, but not to Singapore maybe, for the first step. So I think here we can really bundle all our competences we have. And I always say we have all the ingredients there in Europe. We have more tech talent than in the US. If you look at the software engineers, we have much more software engineers. We have highly talented people with a good working environment. Yes, with the regulations, okay, tax incentives, okay, I'm full with you. But in the end, the ingredients are there. We just need to find a way to bring all this potential up. For example, we implemented a founder's stipendia, really for people just finishing the studies. They get some money in order to concentrate to build their business model. And the resonance is really huge. And I think, and also I would always wish to have incoming programs in Warsaw and in Sofia so that I can tell Viennese startups, go to Warsaw, look at it, maybe this is a good marketplace for you. They should go if the market is there. Yeah? I think we have here many opportunities still open.
Isn't it too ambitious to, for example, compare CEE with Western Europe or US? Do you think it's important to, enter into these comparisons in order to perhaps foster new development?
I often was asked when we started our activities concerning Startup City Vienna, you want to be Silicon Valley? And I always said, no, I don't want to be Silicon Valley. We need to find our Viennese, Austrian, European way. And maybe it is a little bit different, but I think we have the chance, and if you look at all the startups we have in Europe, really embracing the topic of social economic business modeling, then we are on the forefront. We have many areas where we really set the standards, but we need, also earn money with that and bring the companies to a certain size that really have a market share. And so, yes, I think we should always observe the world situation. And when it comes to VC/PE money, yes, we should see what's going on somewhere else and also to benchmark yourself. Okay, we are great, but if you compare, maybe we are not so great. And we have always to be aware about that as well.
Any other thoughts on comparing CEE with different regions?
Well, returns can be similar, which is not bad, I guess.
Yeah, I think the initiatives, the funds, the investments in the region are absolutely comparable to others in terms of return and risk distribution. So there's nothing to hide. I would rather say there is the opportunity. It's and I don't distinguish between Austria and CEE so much because it's so linked historically and cultural. It's an investment opportunity. It's overlooked, which means there is no competition or less competition. There are lower valuations as a result of that, better terms on the deals, and in the end of the day, the opportunity to grow and to be successful in the whole of Europe or globally. So there is more money to be made than somewhere else in a very competitive developed market. At the same time, as an investor, you have to be very much on the edge of competition in order to really generate these returns and results, of course.
I wouldn't dare to correct, but I think Thomas is right, saying that from the perspective of Western Europe, CEE is still a small chunk, so this is not the main objective of investment, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But some patterns that are used in CEE might be very well used with even greater success here. Like, for just blunt example, fund of funds. Every CEE country has fund of funds. You could underestimate the importance of the funding itself, but you cannot underestimate the effect that the fund of funds has on the government, because basically this is their boy. That's their fund. So you immediately, if you have fund of funds, you immediately have people in the government that are interested in this environment because this fund has to return the money invested. So they start to listen. They start to listen not only some people who want to take their carried interest and go home, they listen to their own people saying, look, in order for this fund to give it a return, you need to do this and that. And they are more trustworthy in terms of what they hear compared to like the external investors that are coming and are actually applying, asking for some changes for certain business environments, for certain business sectors. So this is maybe not super comparable in terms of what you invest and what you can gain, But in terms of some patterns that you could use, probably so.
Agreed. We were joking over a coffee today
Yeah.
already. How should we do this, or how should it be done in Austria? Maybe because it's so unpopular to talk about equity and private equity
Yeah.
investments. The best way would be just to do it secretly as a government until it is a success, and then talk about it.
Yeah, but you have to face the. But why is that? It's just because the badge on the PE is not
You're right.
exactly the super glamorous, and this is why I put emphasizes as a lawyer. Maybe I shouldn't be, but this is why I put emphasizes on non-measurable, which is like environment, which is what you direct your investment to, which is exactly the education of the people, which is exactly the VC community, which maybe from the perspective of the fund is not so important, but it is important because it creates a whole generation of people who are already involved in this sort of activity. Last evening I talked to some of co-speakers that are involved in FIBA, so those female enterprise business associations. And this is a super vibrant community I see in Austria. But why? Why is that so? Because they are super active. They are just pushing and pushing and pushing in order to achieve their goals, which is sort of non-existent in the whole market, in the whole Austrian market, like I would say. Maybe this is too harsh. I don't know the Austrian market so well, but I was really impressed by the ladies that were there, speaking about their successes, whether small or big, but they were super excited, and this is exactly the community that is also in Warsaw, female or male.
You're right, and in general, that is the right way. I was just joking before. It is about talking about it and sending the message how it works and that it works. And actually, we haven't talked about the result of the U.S. election, but it's just to bring that up. It's another wake-up call for Europe, and especially also for us, maybe in Austria. It is a very important topic now because Europe has to do a lot of things in terms of spending in defense, reindustrialization of Europe, energy transition. All these kind of things need a lot of money, and private equity and venture capital are acting and can act as an enabler to all these kind of topics. It's working, it's there. We have several companies in our portfolio, from space tech to green tech to other stuff mentioned. There are industries already also in the region very, very successful doing that. So touching all these things now is very important for Europe to stand on its own feet. And the industry, the private equity industry, is the enabler to it. There is nothing else.
So it's not only Austria, but Europe as a whole should be learning from CEE.
Looking at the levels of government, that it can't be the government.
We were discussing Silicon Valley was mentioned here, and what isn't sexy in terms of investment. What sectors in the CEE you would label as very interesting to invest in?
It's exactly across the board. It's what I mentioned. The bigger topics that are on the table is bringing key industries back to Europe. So it's a reindustrialization on all sorts of levels, from healthcare to semiconductors, whatsoever. We call it dual use, but actually it's driven by defense spending. At the same time, also the innovation, the energy transition, the innovative products, space tech, all these things are happening and are functioning and are success stories already. We have, especially out of Romania, we have this kind of poster child, the robotics company, the first unicorn of the region, is now listed on Nasdaq. But it just shows what technology, skill and talent can do in the region and also in Austria. So there's no reason to hide. It's just we need to enable it and to drive it.
Perfect, thank you. We are running out of time, and I will not ask you about your Christmas wishes, but
Why not?
I will ask you, and you cannot mention the country of your origin. What is your favorite place in the CEE? And now the silence.
Well, I'm a typical Viennese. I have a Czech last name. I love to go to Prague, but I love to go to the region in total. It is like the rest of Europe. It's so diverse. It's so different cultures and so interesting. So we have lots of things to enjoy and to discover.
So Prague, Marco?
I'm really biased. Over the years, I lived and worked in Vienna, in Budapest, in Bratislava, in Belgrade, in Prague. So it's like asking me which of my children I like.
You have to name one.
Then Bratislava.
Thank
Which
you.
one of you are the most?
Thank you, Marek.
Well, I cannot answer anyhow else but Warsaw, of course.
You're
But-
breaking the rules here.
well,
I let it
listen, but
slide.
no, really, I like the vibe of the city, and it has changed enormously. Like, if you were there 10 years ago, go back, because it's a whole different city now.
Gabriela.
If I have to decide, I say Sofia now. I like a lot.
Perfect answer.
Good choice.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all the panelists and you all
Thank
in the
you.
audience.
Thank you.